Wow, I can't believe my favorite library is closing. I used to have so great memories in here. It almost seemed magical.
Well, it's magical. The book have the power. Here, take this book.
Moments in Black History? What's Black History?
Black History or Black History Month. For that matter, celebrate of courageous African Americans people who fought only for their freedom, but their identity as a people of the United States.
Oh, cool.
Here, take the book and turn the page.
I never want to come to the Americas, nor to the Western Hemisphere for that matter. I was happy where I was happy where I was living. This was not my choice. It's like one day you're with your family and next day you're on a crowded boat separated. I don't know what hurt more, being brutally taken from my family or finding out that my own people had told me. The boat wasn't any easier. You see these pictures about and movies about the African slave trade, but you don't know what it feels like. What it feels like to be forced on the bottom of a boat. Barely any clothes or food, crowded with other slaves that had been taken from their families as well. We were stuck, chained, held captive for days, for weeks, and not all of us made it. Getting to America wasn't any better because Africans, they said, aren't human because Africans don't catch diseases. Africans can work hard. Africans can be so. I can be so. Do I look like an object to you? I live and breathe the same air, have the same organs, but because my people told me I am not civilized by European terms, I'm not human. Years later, only will they learn, like the Holocaust. Slavery was just as horrible, many people died, were overworked, never paid and brought here by force. Lincoln may have declared us free, but we freed ourselves.
On June 19, 1865, also known as Juneteenth, the last of the slaves were set free. As momentous as education, that this was black people in the United States were nowhere near being free. Still, seen as the lesser humans, they had to work just as hard, if no harder, to make less. They were maids, butlers, and servants, and still were not given the basic human liberties. For years, blacks were not allowed to vote, had no claims to property, they just existed. On February 3, 1870, people of color were finally given the right to vote by way of the 15th Amendment. Sadly, the government was still corrupt and found ways in which people of color were still not voting. These ways were seen voting tests that test people's knowledge, or by way of guessing games. One of so much commonly games used against people of color was the jelly bean game. In order to vote, people of color had to guess the number of jelly beans in a jar. These practices were not only demanding, but also unfair. The civil rights movement was a movement that grew in the 1960s and was a time in which people of color were already fighting for their rights. People of color had not only dealt with discrimination of the voting legal, as years before, but now dealt with harsh and unfair laws, known as Jim Crow laws. It was under these laws that people of color were separated from whites, not only in public, but also in spheres of life. Thanks to segregation, people of color were not allowed to go to the same restaurants, bathrooms, movies, or school as white people. The places that were designed for them were less than those of whites, and they were given far less treatment, being considered separate but equal. Separate was not equal. Separate was inequality, mistreatment, and injustice to all people of color. Separation gave to hate and fear, being masked and hidden by the name Jim Crow. Under these laws, people were killed, hosed down, beaten, and more. It was during this time that the pioneers of the civil rights movement moved their people forward towards equality. Pioneers known and unknown, such as Rosa Parks, the Freedom Riders, Shirley Chisholm, Thurgood Marshall, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Ruby Bridges, and so many more stepped out and for people of color. Now, we'll show some of their stories.
Rosa Parks is a pioneer of the civil rights movement, is famous for her refusal to give up her seat on the bus to a white patron. Rosa's refusal and later arrests led to the Montgomery bus boycott led by Martin Luther King Jr.
I was 42 when it happened, and something I will never forget. I never want to be known as the first lady of civil rights, not the mother of the movement. I just want to change. I was tired of saying why this and color that, because after all, aren't we just people? That day was like any other day. As usual, I went to the back of the bus in the color section. I need you to understand me. I was 42 years old. I was working on my feet all day, and all I wanted to do now was sit. It wasn't until I settled that I noticed that the white section of the bus was full, meaning some colored people have to stand to make room. Is this how segregation works? We colored people are seen like the lesser people, and for this reason we always have to come second? It isn't right, I tell ya. And to the bus driver, and my own surprise when he asked me to stand up. I told him no. I was tired, not for working or my age. I was sick and tired of the color of my skin being the only thing that made this woman. These people think they're better than me, and this woman has just as will to stand as I did. So why she could stand?
The Freedom Riders were a group of students, black and white, who rode on a bus to the South to educate and promote racial equality throughout. They deal with many different obstacles and challenges, but did not stop their message and mission.
I wish to apply for acceptance as a participant in Course Freedom Ride 1961 to travel via bus from Washington, D.C. to New Orleans, Louisiana, and to challenge and test segregated facilities and routes.
I understand that I shall be participating in a nonviolent protest against racial discrimination, that arrest or personal injury to me might result.
Listen to me. Look at me. Does my look offend you?
Does the fact that my skin color does not fit into your stereotype of an educated individual scare you?
Is the fact that we stand here together disgust you? We promote nonviolence.
But that didn't stop you
From spitting in my face,
Calling me names.
pulling my hair,
and making me feel
less than a person.
The plan was simple.
Black and white wasn't right
and segregation was the only way.
until we came.
And challenged the norm.
Ha! How would the South feel to see me,
With me,
With me,
with me,
hand in hand.
challenging the man?
Jim Crow,
Have you met me?
Segregation,
Please.
Just as they tried to separate us, we loved them. Hurt us, we loved them. Hate us, we loved them. We just wanted them to see that skin color does not make a person.
Does not express ideas
cannot make decisions.
and has no opinion.
People do. And if I'm a person and you're a person, why divide us?
Known as one of the leaders of civil rights movement, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. promoted a nonviolence movement to promote the abolition of segregation and the Jim Crow laws. Arrested many times, Martin Luther King Jr. fought for the civil rights of people of color until his untimely assassination on April 4, 1968.
We will forever conduct our struggle on the high planes of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust all white people. As many of our white brothers evidenced by their presence here today has come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny.
They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when would you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality.
I stand before you today, not as a man, but as a black man, because that is how I am seen. Time and time again, I have seen blacks and whites fighting over something as simple as skin color, and I tell you today that I shall deal with it no more. How much longer will the Negro man be the victim of police brutality? How much longer we must suffer for the color of our skin, for something we have no control over, something we were born with? Day in and day out, our blacks are being killed and profiled based only on the color of our skin. We are seen lesser those below those of lighter skin. How much longer will the Negro man be the victim of police brutality? We will fight, not with our fists, but with our words, with our actions, until that day comes and the white man is seen as equal as the black man, until we are no longer seen as the lesser man, until we are no longer seen as the brother man. The time for change has come, and I have a dream.
The story of Ruby Bridges is one of the related to students young and old, not much older than 6. Ruby was one of the first black children to be integrated into previously all-white schools. Young and dedicated, Ruby was poor parents.
The year is 1960s here in New Orleans. Like other places in the South, black children are not allowed to go to the same school as white children. But a crowd of white angry people are standing behind this.
This situation is unfair because the schools for black children are not as good for white children.
Mrs. Bridges serves coffee. Ruby and Mr. Bridges come from her softball game.
Mama, I hit a home run today.
I'm so proud of you. This is Dr. Broyard.
They shake hands.
Is this the girl I hear is so smart?
That's our home run hitting 6-year-old genius.
Dr. Broyard works for a group that fights for black people to have the same rights and opportunities as white people.
What do you mean?
Well, in some places, black people are not allowed to go to the same parks, restaurants.
We can even use the same water fountains as white people.
Why?
Well, some people think that the skin color of yours is the more important thing about you. They don't care if you can hit a home run or get good grades.
Dr. Broyard is one of many people working to make sure you get as good an education as white children.
Ruby, he wants you to help.
You see that nice school back there?
Yes.
I want you to be there. You could be part of history.
After more conversation, Dr. Breuer says goodbye and leaves.
Why should we put Ruby in a school she's not wanted?
Ruby deserves the best, and if she goes, maybe other kids can too.
You heard the TV reporters. People are angry because of black children going to their schools. It could be dangerous or even uncomfortable to Ruby.
People have to stand up for what is right, even if it's difficult.
Two TV reporters stand in front of the school. Police barriers are set up along the walkway leading to the door of the school.
Here at the Friends Elementary School, it is 6 years old, Ruby Bridges' first day of school. A crowd of white angry people are standing behind this flag.
As they walked into the school, Ruby Bridges and her mother were protected by 4 government marshals. The marshals carry guns.
The school.
The reporters interviewed people. Excuse me, ma'am. Why are you protesting here this morning?
I don't want my Jimmy going to school with black children.
What will you do about it?
I will take him out of school until the girls goes away.
This is Dr. Robert Coles. He is a doctor who works with children. Dr. Coles, what do you think of this situation?
I'm shocked by the quantity of this crowd, but I'm impressed with that little girl. She looks straight ahead. I keep walking with her breaking dignity.
Ruby, Mrs. Bridges, and the marshals wait for the teacher. There are no other students in Ruby's classroom.
Ruby, you're amazing. It was scary going through our crowd.
But you followed directions perfectly.
Remember to do the same when we are leaving today. Don't listen to the angry crowd.
And do not turn around to look at them. Just keep walking to the car.
The marshals step into the hall and keep watch. A few minutes later, Mrs. Henry, Ruby's new teacher, enters.
Hello, Ruby. I'm very pleased to meet you. Shall we start our lessons?
Yes.
Okay, so first I'll write a word on the board.
Mrs. Henry writes the word Christmas on the chalkboard.
You wrote Christmas.
Very good. Now, using the letters of the word Christmas, write as many words as you can.
Ruby starts writing. She says each letter and then the word.
C-A-R. Car. S-I-T. Sit.
Very good. She writes so well and so fast for her age.
She picks up everything so quickly.
They hear the crowd outside yell for Ruby to leave the school.
Leave our school! Leave our school! Leave our school!
Why do they say those mean things to me?
Some people were raised to hate other people who are different from them.
But we know everyone is special and we should all respect each other.
Their parents will soon realize they should come back.
They hear the angry mob yell again.
Leave our school! Leave our school! Leave our school!
It's time for physical education, so let's do some exercises.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Count loudly.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
They all do jumping jacks, stretches, and count to 10.
The crowd yells through the window.
Leave our school! Leave our school! Leave our school!
Louder.
Leave our school! 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Ruby is in bed, asleep. Her mom and dad talk.
This is too dangerous. It's not too late to back out.
I want Ruby to have the chance. I want her to get a good education. Then she will have a better chance of going to college and getting a good job that uses her brain. I want our children to have more opportunities than we had.
Ruby comes in.
I'm scared. I was dreaming bad things. Did you say your prayers? No, I forgot.
Mrs. Bridges hugs Ruby.
Pray for everyone, even those angry people.
Those people say mean things to you because they don't want you to think you deserve going to their nice school.
Okay. But you know, God loves you and your dad and I love you. Okay, good night.
That's our brave little girl.
Ruby goes back to bed.
See, she's scared.
Ruby deserves to be there. Her new school is cleaner than ever, and Ruby's teacher is nice and smart.
A few students have joined Ruby's class. Ruby talks to Jamie.
What's your name?
Jimmy,
Do you want to play baseball at recess?
I can't play with you
Why?
because my mom said so.
I can hit a home run.
Really?
Yes, can we play?
I'm not supposed to play with you.
Ruby sits by Mrs. Henry.
When are the other kids coming back so it could be like a normal school?
Are you mad?
It hurts my feelings, I guess.
Of course. It's okay to feel sad when things are not going wrong. I'm very proud of your behavior.
Ruby stands with two marshals in front and two behind her. They take a few steps toward the school. Mrs. Henry watches from the door of the school.
Wait, I can't go into school yet.
Don't stop walking, Ruby.
Ruby stops. Ruby looks at the crowd for the first time.
Ruby, don't look at them.
Ruby's mouth moves. Mrs. Henry can't hear.
What are you doing?
Ruby, don't make it matter.
What is she saying?
Carry her inside.
They get Ruby into the school. Mrs. Henry and Mr. and Mrs. Bridges talk to Ruby. Ruby is drawing a picture with lots of kids in it.
Ruby, I saw you talk to the crowd.
I wasn't talking.
Were you angry with them?
No, I wasn't angry. I was praying for them.
Praying for them.
Yes, I pray for them every day in the car, but I forgot today.
What prayer did you say?
Please, God, forgive these people, because even if they say those mean things to me, they don't know what they're doing.
They are all silent.
That's
Ruby
my
draws.
girl.
Who's in that picture?
That's Jimmy. He's my friend now.
I'm glad.
I'm going to put my picture in the kitchen now.
Ruby leaves.
She got all A's on her report card.
Miss Henry, thank you for paying attention to Ruby. It makes her feel so special.
I think that you guys make her feel special.
Our Ruby has taught us a lot. She has led us away from hate. She has helped our country a lot, and she has become part of American history.
Ruby wanted to finish elementary school. She graduated from high school, then college. Thanks to Ruby and other black children who had the courage to go into all-white schools, more and more schools in the South admitted both black and white students.
Today, there is still unfairness in America. That means that the country continues to need brave leaders like Ruby Bridges to stand up for what's right.
Thanks for joining us today. If you want to know more about Black history, please visit your local library.